What is up, everyone? Volathis here, and I made this video mainly because I wanted to talk about the things that went on during Live Letter 21, which is pretty amazing just to think that we're right now on Live Letter 21. I just wanted to talk about the things. A lot of things were said during this. I haven't had a chance to go into it. I'm just going to go over mainly what I've been able to gather, plus possible ideas of what's going to happen. Now I'm going to start off first with the Dragon song. That is the music video that they were doing. And before I go any further about that, just want to let you know that if you haven't read up on the main scenario up to 2.55, please make sure you do that before you watch the Dragon song. There may be some spoilers for you that you're not ready for Final Fantasy. It does throw a lot of interesting things out there. We do have the classical Warrior of Light, as well as Alfinod, and I can't remember her name right now, the Lullafell, who's been a part of our story for a while. It shows a lot of key characters as well, and probably giving hints of what is going to happen. We also saw Iceheart in there, and a dragon, which I'm not exactly sure. I think it might be Nidhogg. I can't exactly prove it. I have seen concept art of that dragon before, and the one concept art had an eye missing, which is what that we have stolen from Nidhogg. That could be a possibility. I'm not sure. I'm just throwing that out there. And then there was also a lot of dragoons involved in that. There were different colored armors and stuff. Probably a lot of stuff we haven't heard yet that will play into later on. And then the next video that has been put up has been what they called the dungeon walkthrough, and it has a lot of interesting points. There's obviously the music, which has always been, I don't think I've had a song yet from Final Fantasy that I'm like, oh, it's just god awful. But I'm just going to describe a little bit of it. I don't really have the footage recorded of the dungeon, so I'm going to just talk about what was revealed to us. It looks like the first dungeon was on a snowy mountain. It looks like it was outside of a castle. Could be that we later go into that castle. I'm not exactly sure. And then it moves on to a huge cathedral, which to me, I think it could be almost multiple dungeons. I'm not quite sure. There definitely could be multiple dungeons in there. It's a huge cathedral, or maybe you just kind of blow through it. And then the other one involved was the floating, looked like floating islands. They also had the twisters going around, which I imagine will be a very key point in that dungeon, as well as some statues and stuff like that. And it looks like probably one of my favorite dungeons will be later on. And then later we go into a dark, sort of corrupt area, purple crystals everywhere, lightning and constant stuff. Looks like whatever this place has definitely been affected by some powerful source, and maybe even Allagan influence. I also just found out I've been pronouncing it wrong this whole time. But the next dungeon probably looks like one of my favorites so far. It's definitely standing out to me, as that's the library. I'm loving the music, the scenery. We saw a book that looks like a demon wall, but I have a feeling it's going to cast a lot of different spells at us. I'm assuming it's just like a demon in a spell book, which makes a lot of sense. And then it went on to a sort of place that had been overrun by plants, and as well as a fire cave, and a lot of crystals involved in that. And then the final sort of dungeon, to me, I think it definitely looks like it's an Allagan area. The other part of that is also making me think that perhaps this area, because I couldn't tell exactly, that it looked like a huge dungeon, which makes me think that maybe they teased possibly, I don't think this the most. It could be part of the raid they may have teased us. I don't think so. I think more along the lines either A, a really big dungeon, or B, I think it might be one of the story dungeons that we've had, like Cas Mordia and stuff like that. I think it's probably going to be a story dungeon. And it also showed off some bosses here and there, and of course they wrapped it up with, of course, a huge dragon, which doesn't surprise me with it being Heavensward, and I think that was pretty good. And the next thing I want to talk about, of course, is we got a lot of teasers at what more than likely the spells we're going to be getting in Heavensward. Now, obviously, being that these are teasers, there is a possibility things can change. And of course, the first one they started with, because we all know how much Yoshi P loves black mages, and to me this was very important information, being a black mage myself. They went in with black mages, so let's discuss, and I definitely want to give sort of my opinion on what I think about it. The first ability they showed off was Ley Lines. It was a sort of ground placement buff that it says that if you do happen to leave the circle is going to disappear, and it looks like the ability they wanted to do a like 15% haste bonus, which I'm assuming means it'll get a spell speed bonus. Maybe it gives skill speed, but I think more than likely it's just spell speed. Now, being that I play mages and I have played them across multiple MMOs, I'm used to ground placement abilities, and it makes sense because the mage is built not to be mobile. You're meant to bunker down, pick a spot, and move occasionally. Now, what does that mean? It probably means that for Ley Lines, you're either A, going to wait until that buff is about to be able to cast again, or B, you're going to just try and stay in the circle. Whichever works. I mean, you are still going to have to move. That's not going to change. And then the next ability is Sharp Cast, which after using the ability grants you a guaranteed proc. You'll either get the Thunder proc or the Fire proc, which I think is definitely going to help. It definitely helps with the burstiness, and it definitely allows to get away from that, well, I didn't do good DPS because I didn't proc anything. This will help you in a way that if you are not getting those procs, and it's another cooldown to help gain that burst potential. And the next ability, if I don't destroy that, is Inochin, which it looks like it's a 30-second buff, and while you're under the buff, you can cast either Fire 4 or Blizzard 4. So it looks like we are getting Blizzard 4 and Fire 4. That was kind of predicted, but we're not getting it exactly the way we thought. We have to actually use an ability to use those abilities. So it looks like it's very interesting, and you will need your Astral Fire or Umbral Ice to use these. So I imagine that late game Black Mages is going to be another sort of game changer. Like when I played Black Mage leveling for the longest time, you didn't really do, it was about the same thing every time. And then you get Flare and it completely changes your perspective of things. And it's saying a little bit of things how that if you use Blizzard 4, it'll lengthen the duration for... every time you lengthen the effect of the duration shortens by 5 seconds, and you'll continue to use those. It's going to be definitely a game changer for the Black Mage. Next we have the Paladin, and it looks like the first thing they wanted to change to the Paladin is they're going to change how your combos. There's going to be new combos that come from your Savage Blade and Riot Blade. So it sounds like it's going to be a lot less doing the 1, 2, 3 to maintain your aggro and stuff like that. And as well as it looks like they're adding a dot with that. And the other thing coming up next is the Divine Veil, it looks like. What it does is it sets a protective barrier around your target. When that target receives a cure effect, while having this effect, other nearby members are also going to receive a barrier. So it looks like it's not only giving Paladins the ability to stay defensive like they were, but it looks like they're able to give that defensibility to the others around them. And it looks like that'll be more than likely come in handy. And they also said that there's going to be a new the block. It's going to be a new block ability, like how you have shield swipe and stuff like that. And if I don't see it here, but I remember them saying something about maybe increasing the accuracy while you're in sword stance to make you DPS better. Next we have the Warrior, which they're adding a new stance that looks like it's actually going to be an attacking stance. It's called Deliverance. and it's going to be used to increase their DPS, obviously, while they're off tanking and all that. And it has its own stack system, similar to how Wrath used to work. It looks like it's called, I want to say Abandoned, but I don't think that's how it's spelled correctly. But basically, it's something that, and you are able to swap in between the Wrath and the new stack, and it's basically just going to make the warrior even better at off tanking and switching between the main tank and the other. And it looks like that in the DPS stance, the more you use those skills, you'll be able to use better self-healing skills. So it looks like a warrior will ultimately come down to what they have done before, and that's being able to knowing when to be very DPS-y and self-healing yourself, and when you actually have to be very defensive about your actions. And then the next ability is Raw Intuition, which is a very interesting skill if this is what it's set up to be. And that is, while you have this buff, if you receive an attack from the front, you'll be fine, and well, you won't be fine. You will parry an attack. However, it says if you are attacked from any other angle than the front, you're going to receive critical damage. So it looks like a lot of what's going to be involved with that with warriors is it's really going to be involved about your positioning, and if you're not positioned well when you pop this ability, you're really going to shoot yourself in the foot. And then after the warrior, we have the Dark Knight, and they described a few abilities from the Dark Knight. Now the first ability is called the Dark Side. I wonder if that was a Star Wars reference, but it's says it's going to be similar to the Paladin's Sword Oath. It's your more DPS stance, and when you take on that area, your MP will deplete over time, and while this stance, you are not able to receive any MP from other things. So basically, you won't be able to receive any effects from songs from the bards, which was thought about previously. And it also says that weapon skills which restore MP will be very important to your rotation involved in this. And then the grit, of course, will be the tank stance where you gain more amity. And it also says that a lot of what is going to involve with the Dark Knight is being able to switch between those stances, a lot like how a warrior would work with that. And then the other ability they're getting is the Living Dead, which is going to be kind of like Home Gang. It says it's an all-attack blocking action, but unlike the other ones where it's either you just have an animation or you chain yourself to the target, the Living Dead is actually going to jump towards them, and then so you're basically going to throw yourself into these positions. And I just noticed the note down below talking about the tank job recap is that what they're going to do is in your tank stance as a tank, so that would be the Shield Oath, the Defiance, and the Grit. It looks like they're going to have it that while you're in those stances, you have increased accuracy. So it looks like it will change a little bit how the tanks work. If you're going to be worried about off-tanking more, you're probably going to stack a little bit more accuracy compared to the other ones that, like if you're the main tank, you may not need that extra accuracy to use. Next, we have the Dragoon, which they're getting a new ability called Blood of the Dragon. And the Blood of the Dragon basically is when you're done with your combos, it's going to have one of the combos you can turn into a stage 4. It's saying for either your full thrust or your KO thrust. Now, when you do use that ability, though, it will go away. So you have to decide, well, maybe the full thrust for stage is better or the chaos thrust is better in this scenario. It gives probably going to be a little wiggle room until people figure out how that works exactly. And as well, they're also trying to make adjustments to the lock animations of jumps as always. And then we have the Bard adjustments, which is the new one called the Wonders Minuet. And this is an interesting thing that I did not exactly see coming. The Wonders Minuet is basically a song they're going to do. It's kind of like a stance in a way. And basically, if the Bard goes into this Wonders Minuet, you're going to deal more damage while you're in this stance. Now, the other thing involved in that, though, is you have to start now charging your bow to attack. So it seems like you're going to go from the rapid attacks, switching more to the more standstill in attack. And it looks like that you do cast times will be involved with your actions. So I like to think of this as sort of a black mage stance, that while they're in this form, their movement, they don't want to move, but when they do find a spot that they're able to bunker down and attack, it's going to involve that. They also are going to remove the auto attack from that, and as well you're also allowed to cast other songs. Now, so the Wanderer's Minuet is going to be a song, but it doesn't consume mana, and you're going to be able to play at least another song while in that. And I'm assuming that while it also increases your attacks, it's also going to increase your potency probably of your songs. I don't think I read that in there, but I'm assuming on that end. And then next we have the ability called Sidewinder. It's a special physical attack that's just going to increase the effect of your dots already applied on the enemies. I wonder if this is going to be kind of like a refresher ability, like I've seen in WoW, that basically once you have your dots up, as long as you use that refresher, you can keep refreshing it. I don't know the details. I'm just speculating on what I think that might be. Next we have the Ninja, and the notes say that there wasn't any huge drastic changes to Ninja. It does look like they're going to be adding a skill that helps maintain your Huton, your attack speed buff, because they're saying that there was a lot of issues with how it was being used, and that a lot of ninjas were simply maintaining the attack speed buff, and they're also going to have it so you can just maintain that attack speed buff. And they're also, strangely enough, going to be adding positions to several of your weapon skills, which is kind of interesting because the whole point of Ninja originally was that you didn't really have many position requirements, but it looks like they're changing that. And the other one that it looks like is they're adding a enmity. You can adjust your allies, party members, and enmity, your aggro basically. So it looks like you're able to maybe help out. Maybe if someone who's always bursting high damage and always stealing aggro, you can use that ability on them and make sure that that stays on the main tank. Next we have the Monk, which they're trying, originally they're saying that monks, it was all about keeping your grease lightning to those 3 stacks, and while fights are being updated and stuff, it's kind of harder and harder to maintain those 3 stacks. So what they're going to be adding on top of that is a new system called Chakra, and basically once you're able to get that high Chakra stack, you're able to execute a high damage weapon skill, and you'll be able to also use Chakra to restore TP yourself. I know that monks usually do run out of TP fairly quickly, and this is probably ability, and the new elements are also going to have it where you can spend your grease lightning. So basically any chance that, you know, oh, maybe the boss is going to disappear or go invulnerable, or perhaps, you know, just jump to another section, I'm not going to be able to catch him, you can use that ability, get rid of your grease lightning stacks, and then you'll be able to build it back up from what it's been saying with the Chakra ability. Next we have the Machinist, which they said was going to be a role similar to the Bard, of course, but it's going to revolve around your awareness and stuff, of course, with the turrets and all that, as well as they're going to be adding your own buff called ammunition, which, of course, it says by using this you can reload up to 5 stacks of it, and not only will you reload when you use all your stacks, but you can reload when you're not out to increase your damage. So basically reloading is going to be revolved around, maybe for example, the boss is going to phase real soon and you just want to have all those stacks ready while he's changing, you can go ahead and reload. And the weapon skills are going to be a combination of how many shots you do, and basically the more you shoot, the more damage you're going to output. So the more shots you put out at once is probably going to cause better damage, whereas when you're constantly out of ammo, it's just not going to work out too well for you. Next we have the Summoner, and it looks like the first thing they're going to do is they're basically going to change one of our abilities, Tri-Disaster, which, as we know, was originally used as a bind. It's being name changed to Tri-Bind, and they're still gonna. The new ability we are getting is Try Disaster. The new Try Disaster though is basically gonna put your 3 original dots in there, and it looks like, unfortunately, for those of you who are looking forward to getting new Eggies in the jobs, it looks like in the expansion they are not adding them, but they are adding a system later on to change the appearance of your Eggies. So I imagine that we'll be getting more, whatever role they're doing. It's either going to be this primal, this primal, this primal, but what it looks like you can change up, which in all honesty that works fine for me. Let's say I gotta think here for a second. Let's say you're using Titan, but you don't like the look of Titan, and there comes out this new tanking primal and you think that looks better, you can switch it out. I'm assuming it may change the look of abilities and stuff for cosmetic reasons, but damage wise expect the same. They're like, one of the glamours isn't going to be better than the other, and the other thing they're getting, which kind of makes Summoner a little bit more interesting to me, is they're getting a Dreadworm trance, and this is going to be a stance that it looks like they want you to use kind of in between when you're out of Aether Flow stacks and stuff like that, and this uses the power of Bahamut. Yes, summoners are getting an ability based on Bahamut, so it definitely kind of piques my interest towards a summoner. Now, will I probably switch to a summoner in expansion? Probably not, but I think I might actually start playing summoner a little bit more on the side. Next we have the White Mage, and the first ability they're talking about is Asylum, which is going to create a healing field. So it looks like probably going to be an AoE heal, but it's a placeable one. And then there's also going to be another skill used to attack and heal, which is a Seize, which I'm assuming will be like it maybe damages him, but while you're also staying, you get healed. Or maybe it heals based on the damage it does. I'm not exactly sure on that one. And the next thing they're going to do is they're going to add something like Benediction, but it's going to be on a lowered effect, so I'm going to assume it's going to be a lot like how the Scholar Lustrate works. I'm intrigued to know if it either has cooldown or if it's going to have charges. I'm assuming it may just be probably reduced cooldown of like a Benediction, but also it only has 1 charge. And the other one is that they're adding Stone 3 and Arrow 3, which we already kind of thought, and it also is going to use a ranged dot. And the other note they have here is with the 3 healer jobs, it looks like all the healers now are going to give the full effect of Protect now. So even if you play a Scholar or anything like that, you give the full Protect, which will be, I think, sort of essential anyways. I feel like you can't suffer because of that, which will be really neat. Next we have the Scholar, and it looks like some of the abilities they're going to be getting is going to be, first, they're going to get a new AoE healing action to further help the fact of Scholar's AoE healing strength. I'm not sure. It doesn't say whether or not it'll give a shield. I assume it would give a shield. Maybe the shield will be less, but the heal is more potent. Or maybe it's just a straight AoE heal, which I think they kind of need. And the next one they have is Deployment Tactics, in which case it'll extend the effect of an add low or an eye for eye on a target player and to any other party members in range. And another one is going to be the Emergency Tactics, which will give the Ad Locium an additional healing power for the amount of the barrier. So basically it's going to change it so that it doesn't really give you a barrier, it just heals you more. And the last one is that Disposition, which they're going to have it where you sacrifice your pet, and it says for exchange for magic power. I'm assuming that's MP. Maybe it's also a buff where you get more healing done, but I think maybe you just sacrifice the fairy to gain more mana back. Last we have the Astrologian, in which case they have the 2 stances involved, as they've told before. One will be a healing stance and one is going to be a barrier stance like Scholar, and depending on which stance you are, the effects of each ability will change. So for example, if you're in the barrier stance, an ability that would probably just normally heal, is going to add probably a barrier on top of that with reduced healing of the original effect. And they're saying that they're going to be able to use actions such as the barrier gained by Y'shtola in the main scenario. And you're also, of course, going to draw the cards for various buffs. And they said depending on the card you randomly draw, you gain an effect. And some of those effects can include enhanced attack power, haste, and also damage reduction. And you're going to have an ability to return the card to your return it to your deck to draw another one that can enhance those cards. And they're also talking about adding a shuffle ability. So it's the Astral Orion is going to be a very interesting healer, mainly because of those card abilities and being able to shuffle it. And last, they're talking about how the Dark Knight is going to be able to get Gladiator, Marauder actions. I'm assuming for the other classes, they're going to get other cross-class skills as well, just to help them out. I'm not I don't have any idea what they might be. Perhaps like with the Astral Orion, of course, probably going to get Stone Skin. Machinists could get maybe the Monk ability that increases crit. I don't know the name offhand, but most of you know what I'm talking about. I'm assuming that if you go to their lookalikes, like with the healers, think about the cross skills they get there. I'm assuming Astral Orion will probably get a virus and an eye for an eye as well. And with the tanks, of course, different defensive cooldowns and abilities. And with the Machinist, will probably get abilities like the Bard can get. So that's about all for this video. I am including links to everything I've described in this. With, of course, I will have the links for the Dragon Song music video, the Dungeon Crawl. I'm also going to link to the Live Letter Translate, as well as I'm also going to link to the YouTube additional class skills if you want to watch those. And I want you guys to put down in your comments below, what are you looking forward to Heavensward? I honestly can't wait. I'm ready to take my character on into the Heavensward areas and explore the flying mounts and everything. And just anything. What do you think about the skills? Do you like the skills? Do you hate them? What do you are you confused about some of them? Anything like that in the comments below. And I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it. Comment down below, as I've said before, and subscribe to stay updated with my channel. And I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.